No one expected the moment. Not the reporters standing outside the hotel, not the fans glued to their screens, and not even the security teams who had rehearsed the day 100 times. But when Cristiano Ronaldo stepped out of his car, the Nevada sun bouncing off his sunglasses, and walked toward a private entrance where Donald Trump waited behind tinted glass doors, the world knew something unusual was happening, something powerful, something that didn't fit into the ordinary rhythm of sports or politics. Two of the most recognizable names on earth, meeting behind a door no one else was allowed to cross. And yet, if you looked closely, there was something else, a tension beneath the surface, an energy that cinematographers dream about capturing. Because Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't meet just anyone. He doesn't give away moments lightly. He doesn't attach his brand to anything that could disrupt the flawless empire he has spent 2 decades building. And Trump, a man whose name alone can shift headlines in 10 countries at once, isn't exactly known for casual conversations. So when the cameras caught them shaking hands, one of the most viral photos of the year, everyone asked the same question. Why? Why now? Why these two men? And what exactly did they talk about? To understand that moment, you must understand the two forces walking into that room. Cristiano Ronaldo, the most followed athlete in human history, a global business in human form. A man who went from a cramped room in Madeira to a lifestyle so gigantic it bends culture toward him. A fleet of supercars, private jets, a $1 billion lifetime Nike deal, museums built in his honor, and a family who travels in total security. A man who learned long ago that power isn't just in goals, it's in influence. And Donald Trump, former U.S. president, billionaire developer, TV personality, and political figure whose supporters and critics fill entire continents. A man who knows how to shape a narrative, how to dominate a stage, how to create a spectacle. Two worlds that rarely touch suddenly collided in a meeting that left observers speechless. When Ronaldo entered the private suite, the first thing he noticed wasn't the room itself, it was the silence. Heavy, expectant, like the room had been waiting for this encounter. Trump rose from his seat with a smile that carried the confidence of a man who has negotiated with kings, CEOs, and foreign leaders. But Ronaldo did something subtle, something that only a few people noticed in the leaked footage. He kept his posture relaxed, chin high, eyes steady. The posture of a man who knows his value, a man used to being respected, a man who arrived on his own terms. Trump extended his hand. Ronaldo accepted, and behind that handshake was a deeper message. Two empires acknowledging each other. No one knows every word spoken behind that closed door. But insiders, staffers, and body language analysts have pieced together fragments, and when you stitch those fragments into one picture, something extraordinary emerges. According to sources, Trump opened the conversation by praising Ronaldo's discipline, his longevity, his ability to dominate headlines without ever bending to controversy. In Trump's world, that's a rare skill. In Ronaldo's world, it's survival. And for a moment, the two men simply existed as titans of influence, discussing the strange burden of global attention, how everything they say, every smile, every gesture, becomes consumed, judged, and magnified. But things shifted when Trump steered the conversation toward America, toward growth, toward opportunity. He talked about the influence athletes have on global culture, how figures like Ronaldo shape not just sports but mindsets, generations, economies. Ronaldo listened, his face calm, unreadable, the face he wears when he's measuring the weight of a moment. Because Cristiano Ronaldo has always been more than a player. He's a strategist, a businessman, a man who sees opportunities before they reveal themselves. And Trump knew exactly how to speak to a man like that. Insiders say, Trump proposed something that instantly changed the energy in the room, a long-term investment in branding opportunity in the United States. Some believe it involved Major League Soccer's continued expansion. Others whisper about a massive real estate collaboration, something blending luxury, lifestyle, sports, and global branding. A project so big it could reshape Ronaldo's legacy in America. And though no public deal has been announced, the expressions captured in the leaked images speak louder than any press release. Trump leaned forward, hands moving, explaining something. Ronaldo, arms crossed slightly, thinking deeply, a man considering a future that might stretch beyond the pitch. But then, something unexpected happened, something subtle but powerful. Trump shifted the conversation toward values, family, legacy, growth, and for one of the very few times in his career, Ronaldo wasn't speaking as CR7, the global brand. He was speaking as Cristiano, the father, the son, the man who rose from nothing. They spoke about discipline, structure, pressure, about how every generation is shaped by those in the spotlight. And while many expected tension or political undertones, what unfolded was surprisingly human. Two men discussing what it means to carry an entire world on your shoulders. Still, outside the room, the internet exploded. Millions of fans posted reactions, edits, theories, some shocked, some confused, some amused, but all captivated. Because when two of the most polarizing figures in modern history stand together, narratives collide, questions multiply, and the truth becomes more valuable than any headline. And that truth, that deeper, more complicated truth, is what we continue to uncover. By the end of the meeting, Ronaldo stood, shook Trump's hand once more, and walked out with the same calm, calculated expression he walked in with. But something had changed. You could see it in the way he adjusted his jacket, the way he paused before entering the hallway, the way he moved like a man replaying a conversation that might alter the next chapter of his career. And as he stepped back into the flood of cameras, flashes bouncing off his watch and wrist tattoos, one thing became clear. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't just attend a meeting. He triggered a global moment that no one fully understands yet. What they really discussed, the real reason behind the meeting, goes far deeper than politics or photos. The moment Cristiano Ronaldo stepped out of that private suite, the world saw only his signature composure, the crisp suit, the unreadable expression, the quiet confidence of a man who has weathered storms far greater than a meeting with a former U.S. president. But what the cameras didn't capture was the weight of the conversation he carried with him. Every step down that hallway, every pause between flashing cameras, every slow inhale, it all betrayed a mind, replaying details the world wasn't meant to hear yet. And while Ronaldo maintained his flawless public mask, inside the suite, the echoes of the conversation still lingered, a mix of ambition, strategy, and moments far more personal than the public ever expected. Because the truth is, this meeting wasn't improvised. It wasn't accidental, and it wasn't a friendly drop-in between two famous men. Days before the handshake that broke the internet, there were quiet phone calls, private messages, and layers of preparation that hinted at something far greater in motion. According to insiders, the invitation came not from Trump's political circle, but from his business advisors, people who study influence the way engineers study physics, people who understand that one picture with Cristiano Ronaldo can change the direction of global conversations for weeks. And when Ronaldo agreed, it set off a wave of speculation inside Trump's inner circle. Some expected Ronaldo to decline. Some believed he would avoid the meeting entirely. But when the confirmation came in discreet, professional, decisive, Trump's team realized this was an opportunity unlike any they'd had in years. Inside the room, once the initial pleasantries faded, the conversation took a turn that surprised even the staff standing outside. Trump, known for his directness, reportedly asked Ronaldo a question most public figures never hear spoken so bluntly. How do you keep the world on your side? For a moment, Ronaldo didn't answer. Not because he was caught off guard, but because he understood the seriousness behind the question. Influence is a currency. Fame is a force. And Ronaldo has mastered both with a precision few will ever understand. Sources say he spoke softly at first, almost reflective, describing the discipline he built as a child in Madeira, the sacrifices his family made, the hunger that drove him to train in cold mornings when other kids were still asleep. He talked about the focus required to survive fame without letting it corrupt your character. How he learned early in his career that the more the world loves you, the more careful you must be with every step. Trump listened, unusually quiet, absorbing the mindset of a man who built a global empire without political machinery or media strategy teams. Ronaldo's influence came from discipline, excellence, and a relentless refusal to bend under pressure. But the conversation didn't stay philosophical for long. Trump pivoted, he leaned forward, and that when he brought up America's growing interest in global soccer, the expanding investments, the rising TV deals, the wave of international stars arriving to build new legacies. He suggested that Ronaldo's presence in the United States, even in small doses, could change the trajectory of American sports culture. And he wasn't wrong. Every city Ronaldo lands in shuts down. Every stadium he enters fills within minutes. Every brand he touches skyrockets. In the U.S., where soccer is no longer viewed as an outsider sport but a rising giant, Ronaldo's involvement could alter the landscape overnight. Insiders claim Trump pitched an idea that immediately caught Ronaldo's attention, a high-level sports and real estate collaboration that would merge Ronaldo's global influence with Trump's infrastructure network. Something involving academies, luxury facilities, training empires, and a flagship project that would carry both their names. A venture that would create jobs, media attention, global traffic, and a new chapter in Ronaldo's post-football legacy. And though Ronaldo didn't commit, he didn't dismiss it either. His expression remained centered, analytical, thoughtful, the look he gets when he's calculating possibilities, long-term impact, and the risk-to-reward balance of every decision. But what shocked insiders wasn't the business proposal. It was the shift in tone that happened halfway through the meeting, a shift no one predicted. As they spoke about legacy, Trump reportedly mentioned the pressures his own children faced growing up in the public eye. And that opened a door Ronaldo rarely lets strangers walk through. Because behind all the trophies, the jets, the mansions, and the Forbes rankings, lies a father who is constantly protecting his family from the intensity of global attention. He spoke about Cristiano Jr., about the difficulty of raising children who inherit fame without earning it, about teaching them resilience, identity, and humility. He shared moments few have ever heard, nights where he prayed for their protection, mornings where he wished they could walk down a street without cameras, the silent battles only a parent in his position can understand. For a moment, Trump wasn't speaking as a politician, and Ronaldo wasn't speaking as the greatest athlete of his generation. They were simply two fathers discussing the price of legacy. It was brief, but it was real, a window into the human side of a meeting the world interpreted only through headlines and speculation. And then, just as quickly, they returned to business, influence, and global strategy. At one point, Trump asked Ronaldo if he would ever consider a long-term move to the United States, either after retiring from football or as part of a business expansion. Ronaldo didn't answer directly. Instead, he spoke about opportunity, timing, and how every chapter in his life has been carefully chosen, never rushed. But what the insiders noticed was his tone. He didn't say no, he didn't dismiss the idea, and that was enough to fuel rumors across every corner of the internet. Meanwhile, outside the suite, security teams exchanged glances as the meeting went far longer than scheduled. Staffers checked their watches. Advisors whispered updates into earpieces, and the hotel corridor slowly filled with an electric tension, the kind that only exists when history is quietly being shaped behind a closed door. When the meeting finally reached its end, Ronaldo stood with his signature calm. Trump walked him to the door, placing a hand briefly on his shoulder. It was symbolic, almost ceremonial to men acknowledging the magnitude of the moment. As Ronaldo walked out, Trump turned to his advisors and said something that leaked hours later through a staff member. "This will be bigger than they think." Outside, cameras exploded. Fans screamed. Reporters yelled questions that Ronaldo ignored with practiced elegance. And yet, even in those chaotic seconds, something in his demeanor was unmistakable. A man carrying a conversation that could shape an unexpected future. But the story doesn't end with the handshake or the photos, because within hours, reactions spread across social media like wildfire. Fans argued, critics dissected, pundits speculated, and somewhere in the noise, a quiet truth emerged. This meeting didn't stay inside that room. Its impact rippled across football, business, politics, and global influence in ways no one predicted. By the time Cristiano Ronaldo's jet lifted off from Nevada, the world had already split itself into two camps. Those who believed the meeting was a harmless political courtesy, and those who were convinced it was the beginning of something far bigger, far more calculated, and far more disruptive than anyone expected. On social media, millions debated the handshake, the smile, the tone of Ronaldo's voice in the 9-second clip captured by a distant camera. But while fans argued and headlines multiplied, something deeper was unfolding behind the scenes. A chain reaction that neither Trump nor Ronaldo could control once the photo hit the internet. In Riyadh, executives from Al Nassr scrambled to interpret the moment, worried about how the world would connect Ronaldo's club allegiance with a meeting that had nothing to do with football. In Europe, media analysts dissected the conversation as if it were a geopolitical summit. And in New York, marketing strategists watched the engagement numbers rise at a speed they hadn't seen since Messi joined PSG. But the most interesting reactions were the silent ones. The phone calls between CEOs, the messages exchanged by investors, the internal memos predicting market movement. Because when two of the most influential figures on the planet sit down for a private discussion, businesses pay attention. Not all reactions were supportive. Some brand executives questioned the optics. Some commentators expressed shock. But Ronaldo, sitting calmly in a leather seat above the clouds, wasn't thinking about Twitter storms or trending hashtags. He was thinking about the quiet offer Trump made, the one no advisor confirmed publicly, the one insiders described as a legacy opportunity. And as he stared out the window at the horizon, far beneath him, he understood something people online had missed. Influence is never safe, but it always reveals new paths when you least expect it. Once Ronaldo landed, things moved quickly. Reporters shouted questions at him in airports, at training sessions, even outside restaurants. Did he talk politics? Was there a deal? Was he endorsing someone? Ronaldo said nothing. Silence can be louder than words, and his silence triggered even more speculation. Analysts on TV debated whether this was a strategic move toward expanding his American footprint. Commentators suggested he was exploring team ownership. Others insisted it was a simple courtesy call. But behind the noise, behind the swirling interpretations, something far more personal was taking shape. Inside Ronaldo's home, as his children played in the background, he sat with his inner circle, the advisors who have been with him for years, the people who helped him transform from a football star into a global enterprise. They went over the conversation point by point, analyzing every angle. The business opportunity, the international exposure, the long-term implications. His advisors understood what the world didn't. Ronaldo doesn't make decisions emotionally or impulsively. He studies, he waits, he calculates. Even his silence had a purpose. But for all the strategic analysis, there was another layer, one almost no one talked about. A question only Ronaldo himself could answer. Not should I, or is it profitable? But a quieter, deeper question. What does this mean for my legacy? Because Ronaldo's story didn't begin in a boardroom or a diplomatic suite. It began on a small island with uneven streets and thin air, where a young boy dreamed of greatness long before the world knew his name. And now, as one of the most influential athletes in modern history, legacy isn't just about trophies or even wealth. It's about the marks he leaves behind, the academies, the foundations, the young players inspired by his discipline. And Trump's offer, whatever its full details, wasn't just a business proposal. It was a legacy bookmark, an opportunity to build something massive on American soil, something that would outlive his career and echo for generations. Whether he takes it or not still remains uncertain, but the possibility lingered in the air long after the meeting ended. Meanwhile, Trump's team was equally strategic. Within hours of the handshake going viral, analysts in his circle had compiled reports showing how Ronaldo's global appeal influenced male and female audiences across continents. They saw the engagement spikes, the sentiment curves, the demographic charts that lit up like a world map in the dark. Trump himself, according to insiders, was pleased, not simply because of the media attention, but because the meeting showed something powerful, that he could still draw the biggest names on earth into a room that influence respects influence, and that he remained a figure capable of commanding global attention. In his world, perception is power, and Ronaldo had just delivered a message without saying a word. But perhaps the most dramatic impact of the meeting was the fan reaction. Thousands of edits flooded TikTok, transforming the handshake into slow-motion cinematic moments with dramatic music and bold text overlays. People speculated about hidden deals, secret alliances, international ambitions. Some fans defended Ronaldo passionately. Others felt confused, disappointed, even betrayed. But all of them were watching. And that is the currency of influence. Attention. Ronaldo didn't lose supporters. He reminded the world that he moves differently, that his choices aren't predictable, that he lives in a stratosphere where the rules no longer resemble anything normal. In the days that followed, the internet quieted down, but the major players didn't. American investment groups made discreet contact with Ronaldo's team. European executives exchanged emails analyzing the impact of the meeting on CR7's brand value. Football journalists sensed that something about Ronaldo's future now felt more open-ended than it had in years. And Trump's advisors debated whether the moment should be leveraged further or left untouched. Preserved as a symbol of unpredictable power. But behind all the speculation, behind the endless theories and debates, one simple truth remained. Two worlds collided in one room, and neither walked away unchanged. For Ronaldo, the meeting served as a reminder that his influence doesn't just belong to the football world. It belongs to global culture, international business, and the shaping of future generations. He's not just an athlete anymore, he's a force, a movement, a brand that governments, corporations, and leaders want in their orbit. And the meeting with Trump, no matter how controversial, proved that more clearly than any marketing campaign ever could. For Trump, the handshake captured something he values deeply: relevance, power, the ability to command a headline across multiple continents with a single moment. Whether a business partnership emerges, whether a large-scale project unfolds, whether Ronaldo steps further into the U.S. market, the seeds have already been planted. And for the world, the moment was a reminder that influence doesn't follow predictable routes. Sometimes the most unexpected meetings reveal the shape of the future long before we understand it. In the quiet of his home, hours after the meeting, Ronaldo finally allowed himself a moment of reflection. He thought about the journey from Madeira to Manchester, Madrid to Turin, Riyadh to Nevada. He thought about every stadium he filled, every record he shattered, every dream he surpassed. And he realized something profound. Life keeps opening doors, even when you think you've walked through them all. The meeting with Donald Trump wasn't about politics. It wasn't about headlines. It wasn't even about business alone. It was about influence, recognizing influence, power, meeting power, legacy acknowledging legacy. And somewhere in that quiet reflection, Ronaldo understood the truth that no headline had captured, that the conversation in that room wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new one, a story the world hasn't seen yet, a story still unfolding, a story only time will reveal. And when that new chapter comes, whether in business, sports, or global influence, people will look back at this moment, this handshake, this unlikely meeting, and say, it started there.